Hey everyone, welcome to the Lewis Lee Podcast, episode number 156. This episode is going to be some answers to questions on value creation, burnout, and journaling. This is my third ever Q&A. If you want to check out some of my older Q&As, look at episode number 81, where I talk about customer service, marketing, and public speaking. And then the other episode, number 95, where I talk about marketing, leadership, and writing. So, first question from Bruce says, if you had to suggest a methodology for a high school or college student to research a rare and valuable skill, what would you suggest? And the term rare and valuable piques a lot of people's interest because when you're looking for a job or you're looking to sell a product or service, you want to have an asset that differentiates you from other people that the company could be hiring or that your customers could be buying. So with that, value creation really starts on skill development. And that's why it's so important for the sooner the better when it comes to honing your skills and building over time and building compound interest that comes with a valuable and rare skill is important. But I do want to make sure that we're not getting caught up on having the answer right away. I'm a firm believer in planning. I've said it on the podcast before. I plan out each hour of my waking day, which is totally overboard, but it's totally necessary for someone like me who gets distracted easily. However, what I've realized is even though I don't follow the plan 100% of the time, having a plan gives me the ability to set the layout for what I think is the best route forward. And it gives me the opportunity to look back at something and say, okay, what did I miss? What can I adjust? And the same thing goes for skill development. When I graduated high school, I had no idea what I was going to do because, excuse me, for the past 10 years before that, I thought I was going to be a college basketball player. And being that I wasn't good enough to make it onto a team, I was kind of left in no man's land, not knowing what to do. So with that being said, I had multiple ideas of potentially joining the military, getting into marketing, selling insurance. I did that for 4 years. I thought potentially I was going to be an insurance agent for the rest of my life. And then I thought of becoming a financial planner. And then I believe I thought of starting a startup company. All of those things did not come to fruition. I ended up getting a job and learning so much as a result of it, and getting a job and working in a cubicle gave me the ability to not only hone skills there, but it gave me the resources to put food in my refrigerator, to keep me alive, to allow me to test and try different things that built other skill sets. So the reason why I say all this is to say that you're not going to have the perfect plan right out the gate, but a bad plan is better than no plan because you can change that plan and you can update it and you can see where you failed. So if you're a high school or college student, put any plan down on paper. My suggestion is don't go over 5 years, but look at your strengths, see what you're good at, and then look at what you're interested in and see if there's any overlap into those fields that you could potentially pursue. This goes beyond pursuing your passion, because to me, I believe that as a high schooler or even as a college student working with guidance counselors, their go-to answer is to follow your passion. And I feel like that's a very lazy way of thinking of things. You have to look at it in a way of what is going to deliver the maximum amount of contribution. Money is just a side effect of contributing value to people, to groups of people, to communities, and to society at large. So with that, look at how can you maximize contribution, and to develop an ability to contribute at your maximum, you're going to have a skill, and able to charge more for that skill. It's going to have to be rare and valuable. So at a starting place, to make things easier on yourself on this long journey, on this long road, on this marathon ahead, find something that you're already strong at and that you have a strong foundation, knowing that it's going to be a slog and it's going to be a marathon, and it's going to be, there's going to be situations where you're going to think of giving up to build on what you have to offer. The foundation is just a realization that that you know that you can scrape your knee along the way and still have some confidence of getting back up and getting after it the next day, day after day, year after year, decade after decade, to provide the most contribution. So look at your strengths, create a bad plan, and then every 3 months, every 6 months, update that plan over and over again, and actually get better at creating less poor plans. That would be my suggestion. Next question from Jackie. What if you feel that you have burned out and lost motivation at what you were trying to get good at? How can you develop competence in a field if you no longer have any drive to get that competence and want to do something else? Is that all just wasted time? And to me, this makes me think of going back to what I said earlier about becoming a failed college basketball player. I had, for 10 years of my first 18 years on this planet, foresaw that I was going to be a college basketball player. And when I made it to my senior year of high school, I realized that that wasn't going to be the case. I had no offers. I had not visited any colleges, any college teams. I had no relationships with any college teams. And because of that, going into my senior year, I lost enthusiasm. I lost the drive to perform at my highest level when it came to basketball. And I did shift my energy and my focus more so towards my academics at that time. But when I look back at it, I just realized that I kind of talked myself out of finishing what was left of my basketball career off strong. I guess I didn't want to get too close to it. I didn't want to invest too much in it because I felt like I had invested so much of my time and energy and my mental bandwidth to that, all to fail. So I felt vulnerable. But looking back at it, I mean, just in general, those 8 to 10 years of playing basketball, of getting up and down the court, learning new skills, practicing fundamentals, learning from other players and working with other players, and going through difficult and scary situations together as a team. You know, all of those are not wasted. Right. I carry that now into my everyday work when I'm working on a project with people. It's the same values and the same lessons I was learning as a young kid, learning how to play together and learning how to take orders from a head coach, which eventually turns into your manager or to your client. So I don't believe in the idea of anything being wasted time. I think that whatever you're doing now is basically just the accumulation of everything that you've done up until this point. So I think the only negative to it is if you're doing things haphazardly and making justifications for yourself as to why you're not putting your best foot forward. Even then, I don't think it's wasted time, because looking back at the situations that I've done that, and I've done that even after high school. I've done that with jobs where, because it wasn't the job that I wanted, or because I didn't feel like XYZ was in my favor, I kind of self-manifested these poor and negative loop cycles. I manifested them through my mental model and my mindset, and how I approach things with lack of enthusiasm and ultimately lack of respect of just being able to practice things. So even if whatever you're doing, whether it's, you're a busboy at a restaurant, or you're working at an aluminum factory, or you're working at a doctor's office, or you're working at whatever, I mean, be respectful of the opportunity to work at all. That's how you combat burnout. And know that it's wherever you're at right now, whether it's not something that you don't like doing, at the least you can say that it's going to be a great story to tell people when you do find something that you enjoy doing. I mean, if you're doing a job, or you're putting in the effort to develop skills somewhere that doesn't seem to have any traction now, to me, I only see upside if you're approaching it in a way where you're giving your best. And that's the only answer to this, really. I mean, there's no lost cause in trying to pursue your potential in anything. I mean, how can you lose when you do that? When you're trying to maximize the ability to experience anything and everything at all, you just have to make sure that even when there's a bad situation or a setback, or you realize that you were going in the wrong direction, you're that much more intelligent now to spot those certain patterns moving forward. So there's no such thing as a lost cause, and find energy in figuring a way out of the situation that you're in. I mean, build in contingency plans. What happens? What do you need to do to move to an adjacent field or to a new field, right? If you're moving adjacently, if you're moving horizontally, right, within an organization or in an industry, that's going to take less time than jumping into something that's completely brand new. So do you have the savings for that? Are you having the conversations with, if you're in high school and college, are you having conversations with your parents about this? If you have a significant other, you're having conversations about what that looks like. How does the transition looks like? What does it look like not only financially, but what does it look like from a timing perspective, right? When is this going to happen? And if you go somewhere, what does that mean for them? I mean, are you going to be working at a new job that's changes your commute, or does it change where you live altogether? I mean, these are questions that can help you be proactive. And once you have that plan in place could be used as the gasoline to inject fuel to drive you forward out of burnout. Thanks for the question. Question number 3, how do you tackle big projects? And this, for me, always seems to come at the worst time, because big projects seem to pile up. It seems as if when things are quiet, it's as if the people that I'm working with are quietly behind some curtain, developing this conspiracy to just dump a bunch of big projects on me. But anyways, I love it. I appreciate it. And if you guys are doing that, continue to do it. I love the opportunity to do big projects, but it makes me think of my Spanish teacher in high school. She said, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And it's kind of unnerving now to hear that, as I'm primarily plant-based, but I got the idea then, and the idea now is you just got to take it bite-size. There's no such thing as multitasking. You've probably heard this before, but when it comes to multitasking, you're just doing multiple things with less attention and less focus. And ultimately that comes out with less of a better outcome. So for me, you have to, when you're looking at a big project, you have to understand what is the end goal. And you have to get as clear as possible of what that looks like. And from a business concept, or from a business perspective, you have to think, what does this look like? How close can we get it to it being able to face a customer or a client? Can we get it, this product or this messaging or this ad or this service, to a place that it's as close as someone opening up their laptop and hitting buy? Like, how close can we get to that? So to me, understanding those parameters of understanding, what does that end product look like and why, what are the implications of that? And then understanding the timing constraints around that and trying to be conservative. I hate to use this term, but it's kind of going into it thinking how, and not to the customer's perspective, but from, whoever you're working on this project, whether it's with a group of students or a group of teammates at your job. It's like, time is a resource, right? And so is money. You only have so much money to spend, but you also only have so much time to spend. So it's like, let's get that resource of time that you can't get back and understand what we're dealing with. And then from there, it's kind of like when you're working with the team, I would approach the planning process, the timing, the time and the scheduling of your own tasks. I would under promise and then over deliver, right? So being conservative with that time. If you think it's going to take you 4 hours, maybe block out 6 hours, right? No, whatever the time constraint is, start from the due date, maybe move it up a day if you want to get it done the day before. So that way you can send it for a first round revision. And then work from that day before and work backwards, start blocking off time chunks on when you're going to execute. I don't have a to-do list, but I have a calendar, and I use that calendar as my to-do list. So that tool, a calendar for me is, my most important tool, because the most important thing that I have is time, because once you spend it, you can't get it back. So when it comes to big projects, looking at the time, reverse engineering it and blocking out conservative times to do it is what's important. And just like Navy SEAL Jocko Willink says, you just prioritize and execute. Understanding what's more important than something else, even though you have multiple things of importance, is crucial. And if you're not used to prioritizing things, you're going to be bad at it at first. And there's going to be kickback. You're going to have people from this side of the company or this client base saying, where's this? Where's that? That's all data. Those stumbling blocks of, I should have prioritized this better. Admit that, tell that to your team member, and keep building on that. So that way you could prioritize and execute and reverse engineer your schedule accordingly. Next question from Ruby, who says, what if my focus on a topic is mistaken? by a loved one or loved ones as an obsession. Ruby says, I love hockey and I know everything about hockey, and I'm currently studying management of business events and marketing to someday work closely with and support that industry. However, people think I'm nuts and I'm a psychopath. How do I communicate my efforts as a true passion and not psychotic obsession? Ruby, psychotic, obsessed, psychopath. I feel like these are all the words that my dearest wife would describe me as. And to me, I wear that with pride. I'm thankful that I'm weird per se, because it kind of goes into the vein of the first question of being rare and valuable. If you're rare, if you have something that's rare, it's going to be different, and by being different by default is weird. So if I was just conforming, if I was just the same as everyone else, that would not be a good sign for me. So that's the first way I would approach this way of thinking. And when it comes to your loved ones, I guess I can't really say that. I can't tell you to not care about what they say. I would just say, are you listening to them, to their concerns when it comes to how you're prioritizing things, right? Because I've had situations where I've gotten obsessed over certain projects, and my wife or my mother had confronted me on it, and I just used hard work and grind and hustle as an excuse as to why I was doing it, and just kind of painting them as an obstacle in my way that I have to jump over. And as I get older, it's like, that's not the case, right? They want the best for me. And, obviously I need to understand that. And there's also some things that I'm seeing from my perspective that they can't see from their perspective. So I guess it's just building an understanding, level set with your loved ones. It's like, what do they need to feel comfortable about your pursuits? What do they need to understand your priorities, right? And where do they fall at in your priorities? So, I mean, being part of a family or being part of a relationship, it requires negotiation. So it's if you feel like you can't negotiate with them, then it's like maybe what you're trying to negotiate is not fully articulated. So once you can fully articulate the value proposition that you can give to your loved ones, and it still doesn't make sense to them, well, to me, I would take a step back and say, okay, well, what am I missing? What is something that they're seeing that I'm not? And if it comes down to them just being afraid, or if them not just having the ability to see through your lens, then I think you just have to express that that's the case. And then just reassure them in other areas of your life of okay, yes, I'm obsessed about hockey, but I understand that you feel like it's important for me to be at birthday parties, or for me to bring certain gifts to certain occasions. I mean, just things like that. I mean, it's going to be very specific to you and your family, but it's like, reassure them that you're going to cover the basis for their needs, because your loved ones and your significant other, they have needs. So make sure that you're covering your bases there. And then once you check those boxes, say, hey, I've checked these boxes, and now you have to give me a little bit of leeway to pursue this obsession. So to me, it's more of a negotiation thing than it is winning an argument or persuading people over to your side. Next question from Jared. I am on a journey of learning how to speed read. Do you know where I can get more info on the topic? And I know that Tim Ferriss has information on speed reading. For me personally, I follow the line of thinking that comes from author and entrepreneur Ryan Holiday, who says he doesn't speed read, and he doesn't speed read on purpose because he uses that time to write the ideas that he gets while reading on index cards. And for me, it's just kind of like this idea of like, what's the point? I get it. I mean, if you were the fastest reader in the world, you wouldn't be able to put a dent into one wing of your local library, right? It's just not feasible. There's just so much material out there that to me it seems more useful to grasp the concepts on the books that you do have, the books that draw your interest and draw your attention. Go deep on them. I mean, when you get stuck on a passage, use that as an ability, as a signal of like, there is something here that I can learn. There is something here that I haven't seen before, and that's why I'm struggling with it. So to me, that seems more useful than speed reading. To me, things that help me read faster is making sure, and I wouldn't even say read faster, but read more, is this idea of making it a non-negotiable to read, blocking it down on the calendar. I read when I eat. Okay, so right there, if it takes me 5 minutes to eat and read, well, that's 15 minutes of guaranteed reading time, and it's probably more. But so I mean, making sure that's a priority is huge. And then also, one of the things that I like to do is I like to use my finger, or I like to use a pen in my offhand. So I'm right-handed. I use my offhand, my left hand, and I use that to trace underneath the sentences that I'm reading. And I find that hones my focus in and allows me to get through paragraphs quicker. So maybe give that a try. Thanks for the question. Question number 6. How do you pick the books you read? And then how do you retain what you read? For me, picking books is immensely difficult because I'm interested in so many different things. But I got this idea from angel investor Naval Ravikant. He doesn't read any business books, and he's an investor. So that's a good start. I mean, read something outside of your domain of whatever you're spending your 9 to 5 on, right? You're learning about what you're working on while working on it, right? Your life is teaching you that. So don't limit yourself to just reading, things that are limited to whatever industry you're in. And then Naval also doesn't read anything that is younger than 50 years. So this is a concept that comes from Nassim Nicholas Taleb in his book. I'm thinking of 2 books that I haven't read of his. I'm blanking on the book that I do have of his. Skin in the Game. And he talks about the Lindy effect. And I believe the Lindy effect was also talked about in his other book, Black Swan. However, the Lindy effect talks about how things that stand the test of time, like concepts, ideas, creative pieces of art, when they stand the test of time, the longer they're around, the longer the percentage of chances of them staying around. So that's the idea behind the 50-year threshold for books. So when you read religious texts like the Bhagavad Gita or the Tao, the Book of the Way, when you look at these texts that are over 2,500 years old, they've been around for a long time, and that should be a signal. It's like, why have they been around for so long? And why have they have been around for a while, but how have they been spread so far around the world? The idea is you want to find books that offer concepts that are universal and timeless. And the importance of that, for me, has been realized during the coronavirus pandemic. Because a lot of the lessons that I've pulled from my research are things that I can apply and that I was applying before the pandemic and still applying during the chaos of the pandemic. So you want to be able to find things that are stable enough that could be used anywhere at any time. And those are the great concepts that you should gravitate to. And those are the types of books that you should be searching for. And that's kind of my criteria of how I pick a book. And then how do I retain what I read? Check out Readwise. It's an app that there's several different approaches to it. They have a camera scan feature on there where you can go through your books and you can scan the highlighted text and it imports them into this app, or you can manually enter them, or you can the books that you bought that you don't want to put in your highlights, you can add them as a supplemental book, and Readwise will pull from Amazon Kindle the most popular highlighted items in each book. So what Readwise does is it collects these highlights, and then every day it sends you an email with 5 highlights from these books that you read. And it's a great way to retain things that you were interested in, things that you were looking forward to remembering. It's easy to automate them and put them in one spot where you can pull them up at any given moment and then have them automatically repeat. So Readwise, go check it out. They have a 2-month free trial, I believe, so try that out. I have 18 days left on mine, and after that, I'm planning on buying the full subscription, which is about $8 a month. So that's less than what I would spend at Chipotle. So I just feel like I'm going to continue to nourish my mind for $7.99 a month. So Readwise, go check them out. And no, they are not a sponsor. They are a reverse sponsor. So if you're from Readwise and you hear this, come talk to me. We'll talk about advertising on this podcast. I would love to be an evangelist of your product. Nonetheless, moving on to the final question. Question number 7. Do you journal? The answer is kind of, sorta. I hate that answer. It's so vague. But I do have a notebook floating around here that I jot notes down throughout the day. And the way I like to categorize them is, whether it's a thought or an idea or something for the podcast, I'll write thought, idea, podcast in all caps, and then I'll start writing out what I want to put down. I like to write down first thing in the morning my dreams in this notebook. I feel like there's latent information laying in my dreams, right? This is like a part of my subconscious mind trying to simulate and work through something. So whatever that is, to me, whether it's real or whether it's fake, there's information there. And that's why I like to journal my dreams down in this notebook. And there's also the 5-minute journal. The 5-minute journal has a template. You have the date, you have a quote, from someone, you have, what are you thankful for, grateful for, what would make today great, and then some aspirations for the day, and telling, like who you are and what you are and what you want to be like. That's in the beginning of the day. Then at the end of the day, you can recap it. And I also use Jocko Willink's the code evaluation form. I use that at the end of the day, and that's been very helpful to get an understanding of where I'm at and where I need to go, and to look at how far I've come. And that's really what's nice about journaling, is just capturing these versions of yourself that you could peek at and say, oh, this time I was really creative. Why? This time I was really sad. Why? What is this? Look how far I've grown and look how far I've come. Where can I go from here? Those are all the questions that you can get from journaling and using a time capsule of who you are and what you've done and what you've become and what is to come moving forward. And moving forward from this podcast, that is the end of this Q&A session. I hope you found it valuable. If you want to ask me additional questions, the best way to reach me is on Twitter, and that's @_Lewis_Lee. Send me a tweet, ask me a question, and I'll do what I can to give you the best answer that I can. And with that, thank you so much. Hope you have a great week. Hope you're staying well. And I hope that you are enjoying life. Thank you.